I'm curious your thoughts today with Iranian state media reporting that Iran has closed the strait. On one hand, Pakistan is telling us on the other that, once again, we're on the verge of peace. Which do you see as more realistic?
Maybe all of the above. Listen, going into these negotiations, I can tell you, being a part of Steve's team last year, before we ended up doing the bombing in June of 25, there were negotiations that were started. And so what you often see, we must have had 20 different countries reaching out to us, asking us to be a part of the negotiations to help facilitate. So I'm not sure what's going on with the Pakistanis today. It may be a cry for relevance so far in the negotiations.
Interesting.
I actually, though, I think I disagree with the woman that you had on from AEI that said the president is sort of out of options or in a holding pattern. I actually see it from an entirely different perspective. I was nervous about the war over the summer. I'm at a much more peaceful state now because I think the president is doing what he did in his first term that actually worked really well against Iran. And that was in the first term, we had the maximum economic pressure campaign against Iran. We have that now, plus a naval blockade. So while the IRGC likes to make these large and loud protestations about the strait and what they're doing and not doing, the undisputable fact is nothing is going into Iranian ports or from Iranian ports. That blockade is incredibly effective. It works. It's important. We're still seeing Axios, I believe, reported about 8 million barrels per day that are going through the straits. Plus, you have 8.5 in some of the overland methods. As you just reported earlier, the price of oil, I think, is in the lower 80s. I mean, when we were looking at the Biden midterms, for example, in 22, the price of oil was higher than this. So I actually think that the president is in the best spot that he's been in this entire year. Inflation is through the roof in Iran. Young people don't have jobs. People can't buy basic needs.
Okay.
And what is this regime most scared of? They're scared of their own people and their protests.
Well, so if maximum economic pressure is ultimately the answer here in your mind, Morgan, it begs the question of why we launched a hot war in the first place. Why didn't we just do this from the very beginning if it's enough?
So I don't think it's enough, and I don't think it's our only option. And I think military force is incredibly important. Why is that? What were the headlines that we heard for the last 4 years leading up to the Trump administration, for the 4 years of Biden? I was constantly reading that Iran was weeks away from obtaining a nuclear weapon. They were charging forward. I mean, the world, and by the way, the people that were the most aggressive in that time, especially when we entered office last year, were the E3. France, Germany, UK. It was our European partners. When I came in, I swore in 15 minutes after the president on January 20th, 2025. And it was our European allies that were sounding the alarm to us about the seriousness of how close Iran was from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And we knew that we were going to have to quickly negotiate. And if that didn't work, take kinetic action, which the president took in June. So there's never one sure thing that works. Like I know you and your listeners, you're used to, a company that says, here's how we're going to get to our projected revenue goal, our earnings goal, and here's the plan. Foreign policy and national security can be very opaque. It can be very gray. And you normally have to look at a series of options and judge it by the day and the week. So I think that the president's military campaign was important. We no longer see the headlines that Iran is close to a nuclear weapon. President Trump was the first president to say that Iran would never get a nuclear weapon on his watch. And he was the first president to actually take serious action for that to happen. So I guess, this whole narrative that the administration is sort of on its back heels with Iran, for me as an analyst and as someone who's been a part of these negotiations, I don't see it at all. I think the president is actually in the catbird seat, not the Iranian regime. I mean, they can't even establish proof of life of the supreme leader. It's like weekend at Mujtaba's.
So when does Steve Witkoff get back at a table? Actually just saw that movie last weekend. When does Steve Witkoff get back at a table, or does this indirect negotiation through the likes of Pakistan and Qatar continue indefinitely?
It could continue indefinitely. I think that the administration is exhibiting and the president is exhibiting a lot of patience right now. And I do think strategic patience is on our side. The president has been clear that all military options are still on the table. CENTCOM is still aggressive. It's still there. It's still enforcing the naval blockade. The U.S. Treasury is still enforcing the sanctions. And every day that goes by, that Iran doesn't have a deal, they are hurt economically. Now, an important and crucial point, economic pain will not necessarily change the behavior of the people that Steve Witkoff is negotiating with. Economic pain probably won't even change the behavior of the IRGC. However, economic pain does change the behavior of what I mentioned earlier, of what the IRGC is most scared of, is most fearful of. It's not any foreign military. It's not America or Israel. They're most scared of their own people. And the economy today is, of course, much
but Morgan,
worse
if I could jump in there, wasn't that the narrative at the beginning when the president announced the launch of major combat operations? He said it was the time of the Iranian people to rise up. That didn't happen. Why would it happen now? What has changed?
Well, it did happen in January, which is why we actually started.
Right, I'm talking post the launch of Epic Fury.
Because you can't really predict this stuff in foreign policy. I mean, listen, I actually said on Bloomberg a few days after Assad fell, and none of us were predicting that. Thank you. I've been going on your network for a while, and I remember that very vividly, that was just not a day that we were all predicting. So these things happen in foreign policy. You can't really predict when the people are going to rise up and take on a regime. But what you can ensure is that the people who terrorize, the IRGC who terrorizes the Iranian people, you can make sure that they don't have extra money in their quivers in order to continue to terrorize their own people. And that's one of the goals of this economic campaign.